In the middle of tremendous darkness and personal tragedy, false lights are trying to guide us, and they can bring shipwreck. We must be focused on God's pathways and His light in the storms of life. Christ is the light of navigation. Hello, and welcome to the Light of Navigation in this Reflections podcast. My name is Marguerite Lever-Woodall, and I'm an author and speaker and your host. In these podcasts, I love to explore and contemplate different life issues and their solutions through the lens of God's wisdom and His words. In this episode called The Travelers, let's examine and ponder about the deserts of life. Where is God when we've been seemingly dropped off in one? Join me in giving thought on the tough issues of life, and let's discover God's pathways through them. How many deserts are there anyway? It seems like there's quite a few of them, and they're never ending. Or at least there can be one big, long one that we'll encounter in life. I'm talking about our personal deserts that we find ourselves traveling through. From a spiritual vantage point, that's what we call them. After several hardships that I've walked through over the years, I've thought a lot about those deserts. It's a place where life's difficulties seem to thrive or multiply. Or it's a territory where it looks like all the purpose and direction in life comes to a standstill, or both. Mark my words, we all go through them if we're following Christ with everything we've got. There was a moment years ago as I prayed when God showed me an image regarding my life journey and its imminent direction. In it, I was standing at the edge of a vast desert. It looked like a wasteland with no end in sight. As far as the eye could see, there were miles of mountainous rolling hills of windswept, clay-colored sand. No trees, no oasis, no water, just sand everywhere, and only one dirt-packed, dusty road that stretched as far as the eye could see. It reminded me of the long stretch of paved desert highway in a movie scene from Forrest Gump. It was one of the many highways he'd decided to run down for years. At the same time, directly behind me was the scenery of my normal life. I saw one foot pointed forward towards the desert's sandy border, and the other foot still standing on the green grass of my present life. I had a choice: to stay where I was at, or enter in. A desert journey was not appealing, to say the least. But God rarely presents something without a purpose. In those moments, I saw myself choose to enter in. The next several years felt as though they were totally void of purpose and direction spiritually. All the ministry in my life stopped, and it was as though I'd been placed on a shelf and set to the side altogether. It was in those desert-like years that several difficulties and hard life events took place. There were conflicts with family members periodically that erupted with painful outcomes that destroyed relational trust. There were intermittent challenges from demonic forces. A particularly tough battle ensued for several months, with these forces trying to bring division between myself and my church's leadership. It seemed relentless, but fortunately, by God's grace, I recognized this type of demonic attack. I weathered it, and I won. At the same time, my workplace became a multi-year daily battleground. A newly hired corporate-level person with evil intent brought persecution through false accusation and other various attacks. A God-directed 18-month battle also ensued in a bid for freedom from a 45-year cigarette addiction. I was told by the Lord that it was time to let it go. Once again, He gave me victory over something I never thought I'd be free from. And to top everything else off, I had to bury 3 dogs that I loved dearly, one at a time. I'm one of those people that, having to stand in a veterinarian's office to watch a dog being put down, traumatized me horribly. Yep, it was a desert, all right. A long one. It was a 20-year journey through this desert, which also saw the loss of my only child and a cancer diagnosis 18 months later. Midway in this multi-year desert-like season, the Lord brought a powerful image to my mind one day. As the picture unfolded before me, I saw the dust of mourning repeatedly flying high into the air as I knelt on the ground of a well-traveled road. I was bent completely forward, with my forehead almost touching the ground in front of me. I was grabbing handfuls of the dust from the road and throwing it over myself as I wept and cried out loudly. This was the Arabic custom for mourning. My head and hair, along with the Middle Eastern-looking cloak I wore, was so caked with dust that I looked like a baked clay figure with tears running down my face. Walking past us and continuing on in their own journeys, I looked up briefly to see other travelers farther down the dusty desert road ahead of me. As I briefly glanced sideways, I saw that someone else was kneeling beside me. As I glanced sideways at him, I noticed he was throwing the dust over himself as I did, and was weeping and wailing loudly with me too at the same time. I audibly heard his very loud vocal, heartfelt cries in the vision. I could see that his head and face were just as coated with caked-on dust as mine. A small smile swept over my face when I saw how dirty we both looked. His genuine heartfelt cries of mourning and grief for and with me impacted me deeply. He held nothing back. His compassion and empathy swept over me like a river. I can't begin to describe or put into words what those moments were like. I was profoundly impacted by his emotional cries that were so deeply genuine. As I looked at us both, his scarred hand reached out to touch my shoulder, and he quietly said, "There is hope for a better day." The insights from this first image grabbed a hold of me and shook me to my core. When we go through the wilderness journey, it's easy to question where God is in the middle of it all. We're usually thinking, "Where are you, God? Do you care? Do you know what I'm going through?" from this revelatory image that he gave, I understood that my grief, sorrow, and pain deeply impacted him as much as it did me. Indeed, it gave new definition to the word empathy, his pathos or feeling. We all wonder what a desert journey is about, and we don't often understand why God leads us into them. What is he trying to achieve in us through it? And what was and is his goal for us when we're finally led out of it? I'm not recounting the previous life events to complain. Far from it. My purpose in sharing this is about how crucial these deserts are. They have a purpose. Christ was led into a wilderness. And what was its end result? He came out of it in great power. Some of the greatest spiritual growth I've ever known developed in me through this. Endurance is one of the many fruits that we walk out with. Patience, trust, and faithfulness are its end result as well. There's always those major areas in our lives where freedom and maturity is needed too. Beyond all of this, I discovered that God walks with us through our wilderness experience. He never abandons us to it, and He's with us all the way. As the years marched past me in life through this wilderness, a second and final image was presented to me. It came when the exhaustion of the desert's journey was catching up with me, and just before my multi-year wilderness trek ended. I visually observed two travelers that had been walking some distance in the heavy sands. They stopped and stood in front of what looked like a small hut, a resting place in the middle of the seemingly endless sea of sand. The sun had gone down long ago, and the dark of night was thick. The man standing to the left of the woman held her with his right hand and arm, and it was wrapped around her shoulders to hold her up. You could see the fatigue slump of her body as she had become worn and physically spent from the long journey. The man lifted the torch in his left hand higher in the darkness of the night to find the entryway into the desert hut. It was a place of rest, briefly, for a time. The light from the torch illuminated his shoulder-length dark hair, white robe, and sandals, and the wounds in both his hands. The woman looked down at the sand all around the hut as the torchlight revealed that it had been trampled heavily. It wasn't smooth as a windswept desert sand would usually be. Deserts were not often traveled, she thought, so the sand should be smooth or exhibit a windswept pattern instead. This sandy area had been well traveled and was full of footprints, many of them. Others had been this way before. Therefore, behold, I am going to persuade her, bring her into the wilderness, and speak kindly to her. Then I will give her her vineyards from there, and the valley of Achor as a door of hope. Hosea 2:14-15. Thank you for listening today. We all have that desert journey at some point in our life and wonder where God is in the midst of it all. If this podcast sheds light on the presence of a God who loves us all, and if it encourages someone you know, please pass it on. Your comments are valued, and subscribing is deeply appreciated. Hey, stay tuned for the next episode of Reflections. You never know where God will take us to explore life's journey and His pathways next.